Now, we could sit here, we could break down the game yesterday, but who cares? In the words of Brady Quinn, who cares?
I mean, they did get shut out,
Yeah, listen, it's hard to score in the NFL. But there was a report that came out on Saturday, this according to Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network, that there is tension within the Jags organization between Urban Meyer and players and coaches. And in the report, it listed, that Urban Meyer called his coaches losers and said that he's a winner and that he challenged them to ask them about their resumes. He also, according to the report, that players on the Jaguars are very frustrated. Marvin Jones walked out because of some of the criticism.
So they had to go get him.
Yeah, because he was criticizing the wide receivers. Players on the field after their game against the Rams last week complained that Urban Meyer doesn't treat them like adults, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All this stuff coming out on Saturday. Urban Meyer, of course, was asked about it on Sunday after the loss. Here's what he had to say yesterday.
What's the answer? Start leaking information or some nonsense? No, that's nonsense. That's garbage. That's once again, I've been very blessed. I've not really dealt with that. I've not dealt with, well, did you hear what he said? What? No. Let's improve on offense and get our quarterback in a position to be successful. That's our focus. What someone's brother said or someone said, that will occupy very little of my time. And if there is a source, that source is unemployed. I mean, within seconds, if there's some source that's doing that.
Shot fired.
Yeah. So there you go.
You won't notice.
I can tell you this much. I know for a fact whatever was said about the Marvin Jones things didn't happen. I know for a fact about that. Now, are there potential leaks coming out of Jacksonville? Probably. I mean, that's how this stuff gets out, But there's also been people who have been angling or trying to take shots or, basically put out this story that it's not going to work since day one, since Urban Meyer got
100%.
there. I mean, that's my issue with all of this, is the media never gave Urban Meyer a chance. And from the get-go, it starts with the fact that a lot of the media members who have no relationship with Urban Meyer or any other college coach for that matter hate the fact that they would have to, one, develop a relationship with someone new again, and two, I feel like there's this sentiment that college and NFL, it's like the minor leagues and big leagues. And so when you have a coach comes up like a Cliff Kingsbury, who's done so much and been so successful and gotten better every single year, the media at the NFL level hates to admit it because they don't like to admit the fact that that can be done. And it's almost like, oh, so maybe a college writer can come up to the NFL ranks and take over that senior position job for whoever it is. Whatever website, whatever, newspaper, if we even have that anymore, whatever the case may be. There's almost this sense of, well, we're the big leagues and you can't just come up here and be successful. You can't make your way work up here. That's not how this whole thing works. And it seems like at every single chance, instead of hearing them out or waiting to see how it looks, they're trying to push him out before he's really even been given a chance. So I feel like the media has had it out for him in the first place. I know people who are personally and emotionally frustrated with the fact they haven't got as much access in Jacksonville, and people who have worked in that market for a long time and haven't got access to them, and so now they have an axe to grind. And that's how they've handled things in Jacksonville, purely because they haven't gotten to sit down or they haven't gotten time with them. Think about how catty that is. But that's how the media is now. They use the power of the pen, or what you used to say, the power of the pen, basically like a vendetta just because their personal feelings are hurt instead of being professional about it. So what I hate about this is two things. The media never gave him a chance, and then now you've got coaches who, maybe are feeling pressure, but they're trying to go for a life vest right now. And they're trying to jump off this ship, and they're trying to save themselves, and that's how this stuff gets leaked out like that. That's why you're hearing about it right now.
Self-preservation is always going to lead the way at the pro level. And with what's taking place right now, of course, coaches and maybe even players are going to put it out there, their side of the story. before something possibly comes out. You know, it's always better to be in front of it than to be behind it. And the idea of it is if you come out and you tell me after the fact, and that's why I went out RG3, right? If you come out after the fact and say what's already been said, it's already come out, you're disgruntled. You know what I mean? Like if you say it ahead of time, it's like, oh, you were trying to tell us all along. And so to me, that's self-preservation, and that's putting yourself in a position where if things don't go the way you would want them to go, you have an opportunity to manage the situation as it applies to you, whether a coach, whether a player. The thing that I think find interesting, and just based off of some of what Brady is saying as well, is when you talk about leaving the college ranks, when the media doesn't like you in the college ranks, which the media has never been a friend of Urban Meyer. They've never really loved him or admired him in that way where they've put him out there that way. One thing that I know for certain about media is once they've decided what you are to them, that's what you are to them. You'll never be anything else. Doesn't matter what you do. It'll always be you did that and that was great, but this is still what we know. This is who we know of you. That's the media. That was why I got into media. But the thing about college is, as much as you may dislike that coach, if that coach is successful, that coach is untouchable. Untouchable. Meaning the players, you can't have a source. The coaches, you can't have a source. You're not going to. There's no college Adam Schefter. A coach isn't sitting there like, yeah, you know what? Urban is wrong for this. He said this in the meeting, or a coach, a source leaked. They would sit in that meeting room. This is college ball. They would sit in that team meeting room, lock the doors. These are all the people that were in here that when this was said, we not leaving until we know who said it. We're not leaving. Lock the doors. Y'all want to put some snacks on the outside, whatever. We bring some snacks in. Don't mess up my meeting room. We not leaving until you let me know. The problem that happens is once you get to the pros, you don't have that type of control. You can't control the players that way. You can't control the coaches that way. You can't control other staff members. You can't control the training room staff, the weight room staff, which are coaches as well. You can't control what they do and what they say because it's the pro level. So now they have a voice just like you have a voice. They make more money than you make. They have more influence than you have most of the time. So you can't approach it that way. So now where we stand right now is Urban Meyer is at a crossroads of sorts already in his early career as a head coach in the pros, and that is understanding how this all works, the rules of engagement of how all of this works and how people will use self-preservation in the best interest of their own agendas. He has to figure out how he's going to regain whatever it is that he needs to regain or establish whatever it is he needs to establish, and he's got to figure that out soon, relatively soon.
I think the other reason why at the college level you don't see quite as much of this is because you get apprehension from the players in the sense that, I mean, they're young men. Like, do they really want to start trying to leak stuff out there or be like that? Maybe that's changing with some of these NIL deals. But the other piece of that is the fact that the family's more involved in the decision. Like, when you choose to go to a university and play for a certain coach, you kind of know what you're signing up for. Like, you're responsible for that decision because you ultimately made it. Like, yes, they offered you, but you ultimately made that decision to go there. It's a little different in the NFL when someone drafts you. You didn't have a choice.
You didn't have a choice.
They draft you. You know, or I mean, maybe it was your only choice if you're a free agent where you're just trying to get on a team, get on the field, and so you're doing it out of necessity, not necessarily want. And so there's those few free agents who sign, but for the most part, like, some of these players didn't have a choice, right? Whereas in college, like, it's all about your choice to do so. So, and even the family helping you make that decision signs up for it. So I don't feel like you always see as many leaks from that standpoint because it's like if you're frustrated in college with where you're at, you got to look in the mirror because largely you're the one that made the decision why you're there in the first place.
There's a couple of things, and to Brady's point on this, he's never been given a fair shot by the media since he got to the NFL. You remember he hired Chris Doyle, who's the former strength coach from Iowa, and Chris Doyle lasted 36 hours there on the job because then everybody brought up all the stuff that happened at Iowa. Like, why would Urban Meyer bring him in? Well, I don't know, because he's one of the best at the job. Like you ask anybody, Bray, you've talked about it. Chris Doyle is respected as being really, really good at his job. There was stuff that went down at Iowa that came into question, and so Urban Meyer made the move. All right, we got to move on from him. He dared to give Tim Tebow a tryout. He just gave him a tryout, and he got crushed for it. He got because he gave Tim Tebow a tryout. He didn't make the team. He didn't make the roster, but he got buried alive for it. And then this conversation about these assistant coaches inside this meeting that apparently, leaked this to Tom Pelissero or the NFL Network or whatever it is. Part of this that bothers me is that we're not adding context to this. So when Urban Meyer, people are running with this, man, he told all these coaches they were losers and that he's a winner. Here's what I think happened. I think Urban Meyer said to these guys, this is a loser's mentality. I refuse to have a loser's mentality. I have a winner's mentality. And one of those guys got a red ass and was bothered by the way the conversation was going. And then he ran to the media and it got spun into this. It's all context. The John Gruden emails. One of the stories that came out of the John Gruden emails in Washington was that John Gruden asked somebody to perform oral sex on him. Remember that thing? When in reality, that's not what he asked him. He made a comment that a lot of guys have said to other guys, like, you know what? Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And when you actually write that down, it appears that he's asking for something when it's not the case. It's a put down. It's an insult. It's a figure of speech.
I got a great example for that, Jonas.
But it's true. And all this stuff comes out. I just think it's complete crap. People ran with it. Like, grown men are going to sit there in a meeting and let Urban Meyer call him a loser to their face and ask him to flash their, if you actually just sit and think about it, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense.
I remember when Coach Spurrier started to lose the locker room, and it started to turn into like mutiny, and basically you had one situation where Bubba, Coach Spurrier's son, said in the meeting room, can y'all stop calling each other N-words, right? And it came, by the time it got to the locker room, it was, Bubba called us the N-word. Bubba said a bunch of N-words running around. And everybody was already on edge. So everybody, you got one side that's like up in arms, like, how dare he, like, racist. I knew they was racist. I knew they were prejudiced. I knew they was racist. I knew they were every word under the sun,
That's
right?
crazy.
And so now, whether the truth matters or not, the truth begins to get further and further away from being the true meaning of what the beef is all about. When we was in that meeting room, when we went into that team meeting room and Coach Spurrier addressed what took place, when you got grown-ass men in a room and they have already decided what they feel and what they think, you can't win. There's no – if you find yourself in a situation where you've taken somebody and you want to take them out of context because of one reason or another, you have already lost. And if Urban Meyer, and this is just me looking at it from – this is what I went through with Coach Spurrier coming from college and coming into the pro ranks. If you get to a point of where the players on your team want to have a problem and not they were using the people that had a problem with Coach Spurrier were using Bubba to have a problem with Coach Spurrier being the coach. I'm going to leverage this. It doesn't matter what the truth is. I am leveraging this. So if Urban Meyer is finding himself where these players are now going to look at him and they're targeting him and they're leveraging whatever it is they're going to leverage based off of what was said, and it's getting to the media, all that is the players or coaches or players and coaches putting themselves in a position where they could basically leverage Urban Meyer out of the job.
It's their excuse to go back to what they originally
I've seen
came
it
in
happen
with.
before.
Well, look, when you're losing football games, very seldom times do people, all right, not look in the mirror first. They try to point fingers. It's human nature because they all want to survive. They all want to have jobs next year. And when things don't go well in the NFL, there's going to be change. Whether that's changes on the staff, changes at the head coaching spot, general manager, players, changes on the roster. That's how this works. And so when you get to a point where you're eliminated from the playoffs, and it becomes self-preservation mode. LaVar just said it. And you really find the true character of people at that point in time. Like it really does identify those who are willing to fight and stay together and those who are just looking to save themselves because they know they probably haven't done a good enough job and they're going to be somewhere else the following year.